There's no room in Worf's heart for shame. Kahless eventually found his father's sword, and the Klingon hunt is a ritual that reminds them where they came from. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6, Episode 17, Birthright, Part 2, written by Renee Echevarria, directed by the Dan Curry. This was February 27th, 1993. Where were you? And you guys, you will not believe it. We have the superhuman, the legendary, the iconic Dan Curry with us. How you doing today, Dan?
Biologically functioning.
Very good. Very good.
That's really good to have you. By the way, I stumbled a little on the date because I saw it on Paramount Plus. It said March 1st, 93. On IMDb, it said February 27th, 93. So I went with IMDb. Anyway, thank you so much.
Choice.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Dan. This is such a thrill. We've had you on before to talk about your VFX mastery, your art department mastery, your storyboards that are legendary, you know, for the Borg cube, for the interiors, for explosions, so many things. But in this one glorious episode, you were the director. How did that come about, please?
Well, I asked Rick Berman if I could direct an episode because I'd been directing Second Unit for a while, and they let me direct one. And interestingly enough, all directors get a tone meeting, but they forgot to give me a tone meeting, so I had no idea what the producers really wanted. And Rick Colby directed part one, and Rick and I chatted a little bit about it, but they were different enough that they were not totally related. And it was a wonderful experience, and especially working with Michael Dorn, who made it as easy as possible by being super cooperative and instantly understood what I was trying to accomplish. And looking back at it, there were so many things I wish I'd done differently, but that is the nature of any artist. They never really like their own work.
So, Dan, first off, it's good to see you. Always a pleasure to be in your company. I wanted to ask you just a little clarification. They approached you to direct this episode, or did you approach them and say, I want to direct an episode?
I wanted to direct an episode, and they granted that. And that was the episode I was randomly assigned to. And it was interesting because it was not a visual effects episode. It was a character.
Yeah, see, but I didn't think it was that random. I mean, this was just a guess on my part that apparently is not right. But I was like, oh, perfect. Dan Curry is good friends with Michael Dorn. He designed all these Klingon weaponry, so many things. Of course they want him for the Klingon episode, but you think it was random, or do you think there was a little something in there?
I don't know. I couldn't describe their mental machinations in selecting that one. I had always assumed it was random.
Dan, how big is, because one of the things, a lot of this is filmed on that camp, that prison camp set, and it was pretty elaborate. I thought it was, well done as far as feeling big and elaborate and just architecture, not usually what we see. So they did a number on the set design. I thought it was well done. Can you talk about that set design? How big of a space it has? I saw that when he jumped over the edge of the wall of it, it seemed like it was way up there.
It was a big set, and it filled up stage 16. We had the prison camp set and the jungle set.
Right.
And the one regret I have about the jungle set is realized I should have asked it to be filled with fog, so it was more mysterious.
Interesting.
And I was going. And speaking of that leads me to my next question, which is you mentioned talking to Rick Colby about the episode prior to this one, and one thing that stood out to me as a visually was the lighting being a lot brighter in this second parter. Was that something that you like wanted more lighting, or did they give you any notes about matching the darkness or not matching it to the previous episode? I did feel like it was brighter. I don't know if anyone else felt that.
Jonathan West, the director of photography, he told me that he wanted to make sure the lighting was consistent from episode to episode. So I just assumed that that's what it was, because I hadn't really seen the previous episode yet.
Yeah, Jonathan West is a legend in his own right. That's for sure.
Man.
So, it's always fascinating to hear people, their stories about being on set. Did it feel like a special moment for you, like something you've been waiting for forever, or were you like,
yes,
I'm always doing second unit directing, I'm doing all these other things, it's no big deal? It sounds like you're saying yes, it felt special.
Yeah, it was a really special experience because it was a deeper probe into character, and it also revealed a dark side of Worf where he was kind of intolerant. And
right.
There's a scene where Michael's love interest, Bael, played by Jennifer Gotti, they're in kind of a moody situation, and she's kind of coming on to him, and he's enjoying the romantic interlude. And then suddenly Michael or Worf reaches up and reveals her pointed ear and realizes that she's half Romulan. So one of the things that I wanted to do, and Jonathan was great about it, was I wanted the light to change with their mood, so that they're standing in one kind of dark corner of the set and being very romantic, and they're romantically lit. And then as Michael makes the discovery, he steps into the shadow, so that the rest of the scene, we see Worf in profile as a silhouette. And so we can focus on Bael's reaction to her shocked reaction to Michael's attitude toward her, because she was a Romulan, and having grown up in an area where there was no enmity between the Romulans and the Klingons, that she just didn't quite understand. So I wanted the light to reinforce the story.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, because this episode had so many guest stars and very little, I feel like the regular cast outside of Michael Dorn was wasn't really prominently featured, and maybe you worked with them 1 or 2 days out of this whole 7 or 9 day shoot. What was it like having to work with so many Klingons that have never played a Klingon before? And was there a lot of catching up on the actors and kind of directing them to be, more Klingon-like?
Yes, and Klingon dialogue is difficult. It's almost Shakespearean in a way. And there was one, forget her name. No, I don't have it here.
I could check. It's not Jennifer Gotti. You mentioned her already.
The mother
who played her mother.
Yeah. Christine Rose.
That's right. Christina Rose was, I believe, was a New York actress, and she had one moment where she was having a confrontation with Worf and got very upset because of the awkwardness of the dialogue. And so she had to walk off the set for a while. So I went over to her and wanted to get her to relax and be able to do it. So I told her, "Well, it's great that you had this reaction because it'll get you in the perfect mood to do this scene, and we're way ahead of schedule," which was a complete lie. But to take that pressure off her, as always, we were way behind schedule, and got her a glass of water, and she was a real trooper and went back in, and I tried to explain that your feelings are exactly the arc that your character has to do, and you should feel like this at the end of the scene. And she nailed it, and take one is in the show.
Wow,
Oh,
that's
wow.
amazing. Well, Dan, you mentioned that there are some things that you kind of wish you had changed or you wish you had done differently. Can you tell us the opposite side of that? Are there some things where you were actually really proud of? Where, besides, sounds like that was a good story there, but were there some things, I don't know if you watched it again recently, where you're like, that was pretty good. Oh, I like that shot.
Yeah, I like to, despite the absence of fog, I liked the hunting scene, and I liked a scene where the commandant of the prison camp comes in, and Michael is making his bed up, and they have a confrontation, and Alan Scarf was the actor, and I thought that was a really good scene because it had really good dialogue as their relationship revealed a little bit more about how they thought about things, and their performances were great. I like the scene where they're playing the game. We invented the Klingon hunting game with throwing the spears, and that was fun. And I like the scene where Tak is Michael Dorn, Worf is starting to teach Mokbara to the young people in the courtyard of the prison camp, and Tak comes out and is kind of challenging him, and so Dennis Madelon, our wonderful stunt coordinator, who remains a good friend to this day, wanted to do a very elaborate thing where Worf flips him, and I felt that Worf would be able to brush him off like a fly. So I demonstrated a move where just grabbed Dennis's hand and flipped him over, and that became what was in the scene. Another thing I wish I'd done, where Worf discovers them gardening with a Gintok spear, another weapon, and actually that was inspired by the spears of the Wicked Witch's spears guards in Wizard of Oz, and
wow,
kind of a medieval halberd cross, and Michael Dorn takes it out and explains what it was, and I thought in retrospect, I kicked myself for not having Worf do a really cool spear maneuver and kind of put it at Tak's throat, and then to show his prowess. But
because he could have done it, Michael Dorn could have done it. You worked with him and kind of trained him in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Michael was super athletic, and he picked up Tai Chi and martial arts moves very quickly.
Yeah, I also like the scene. We're mentioning scenes that we like. I like the scene where the young Klingon, you said I think it's Tak.
Yeah.
When he was, when they came back from the hunting trip, and he dropped the pig or whatever on the desk and started to sing the song. I like that moment there. I thought it was covered well too, as far as the coverage on it. It seemed really well. He was standing in the middle of the dining hall. It was really good moment there with the song as well too, with everybody singing along. I like that.
Yeah, there's one moment in that scene that I particularly liked, is a cutaway to Worf, who just kind of looks very satisfied.
Almost like a proud father, right? He's like not quite. He's not going like, wow. He's not getting carried away. He's just like, yeah, that's right.
Well, it also shows Michael's skill as an actor, because he could communicate a lot with just a nod of his head.
He did.
He did that again, actually, in one of the last scenes where everybody, actually this scene right here, they're all gathering in front, and I'm expecting Worf to give a big, like, sigh of relief or nod of approval or see, I told you so. But he just gave the tiniest TV reaction. It's like he knows the camera will pick it up. And, I don't know if you remember any of that, if there was any kind of direction at all, but it was really nice to see him just give a tiny reaction because we already know what he's thinking. He doesn't need to give us a lot,
Well, there's a friend of mine who's an actor had the opportunity to work with Paul Newman on a movie, and he said Paul Newman gave him the best acting advice he ever had, and Mr. Newman said, "Never act, just behave."
Yep, very good. Well, Dan, I wanted to ask you. This is something I've been thinking about since I first started watching this episode. This is your one episode that you've directed. Did you ever think, boy, that was a lot of fun, I want to direct again? Or was it like, okay, I got that bug out of my system, back to everything, back to the other 40 things I'm doing?
No, I would have loved to have directed more, but the taking me away from visual effects for that long was turned out to be something that the producers were unhappy about.
You were very valuable.
I can imagine. They're like, "Hey, this guy is very useful in these other things too." I wanted to ask you about the Uridian, because we saw the Uridian very briefly for the pickup rendezvous point at some point. Yeah. And was there more that was edited and left on the cutting floor? Because it felt like a lot to go through just to show the Uridian for like 5 seconds on screen.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges was the episode was the script was timed as 11 minutes too long. So 11, so that would have been about 11 pages. And that's a lot. So that's why it felt choppy, because we shot more than the show needed, and they worked it in the editing.
Okay, yeah, because I thought the same thing. But what I thought was James Cromwell is one of my favorite actors ever. Loved the guy. And I was like, did they really pay James Cromwell for this episode when he had no lines and he's just going like this? So I thought the same thing too. I wonder if there was more to it, but they had to cut some things out, because I'm like, you could have just gotten, a stand-in to knock that part out. But I wanted to ask you, speaking of actors, love James Cromwell, but Richard Hurd, who has passed away a few years back, he was a wonderful man, by all accounts. I knew him and his wife pretty well, but you got to work with him. Do you have any memories of him or what he was like?
Yeah, total pro, knew his lines, and I would describe the mood I wanted, and only once did I suggest a slightly different reading of a line, and it was when he assigned Tok to guard Worf, and I said, well, maybe try it this way. We're giving a little bit more sense that he's selecting Tok on purpose, but instead of saying you guard him, he said you guard him, so that it was emphasizing Tok's responsibility for Worf. And he was so gracious about that comment, coming from a newbie, and he was just a wonderful man. And he told me he was doing something on cruise ships, which was interesting, where he had come up with a one-man show about the great director Cecil B. DeMille, and he did one-man shows on cruise ships where he would perform it a couple of times on the cruise and get a free vacation.
That's unbelievable.
That's great. You didn't really work that much with Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes in this episode?
No, they were just in the end when Worf gets back to the Enterprise.
Yeah, so it was very brief, and it might have been like a half day, like I was saying. It seemed like Worf got the the brunt of this focal point.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a
But yeah,
Worf episode.
Yeah, it was strange though that the writers did not revisit the Data storyline at all that was in part one, unless that was in it and they just cut it out. But that was a little surprising. And as you said, Dan,
yeah,
it turned into a Worf episode. The first one was Worf and
Data.
Data. The second one was very clearly all Worf. Was there anything about Data at all in the second one that got cut out?
Not much.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I wish I had known before I started was that they wanted it to feel like a bridge on the River Kwai, with a great relationship with Alec Guinness and Sesu Hayakawa.
Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, huh?
And so that would have changed how I thought about certain scenes. But
did you design the Jintok spear just for this episode, or was that something that already existed before this?
Alan Sims, the prop guy, designed it.
Oh,
But
Alan Sims.
But one of the things I wanted to make sure that the spear was balanced and throwable, so that at the balance point there's a gray section of the spear, so that the actors knew exactly where to hold it, so they could throw it correctly. And one thing, when we played the game, and where the young people were throwing the spears through the hoops, I actually did the spear throwing.
Oh, no way. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. So, Dan, we only have you for a few more minutes here. However, first, let's just go ahead and point out the elephant in the room, or the Emmys on the wall. You've won several Emmys. It's enormously impressive. Oh my God, there's even more of them hiding back there. Unbelievable. How did you get your start in Star Trek in the first place?
In Star Trek, supervising producer Peter Lorison, before that, had been VP of Paramount Television post-production. And at the time, I had worked at both modern film effects and cinema research, and done a lot of work with Peter, both in designing title sequences and creating visual effects. So when Star Trek, when they were thinking about it, Peter decided to join Star Trek and leave his VP post. And he had this idea that they needed 40 stock shots, and that would cover the series of the Enterprise entering orbit, leaving orbit. And so Peter asked me if I could do on the side storyboards for these 40 shots. So I had some pictures of the rough Enterprise model and Andy Probert's sketches for what the Enterprise would look like. And I did those 40 storyboards. And my background had been in film, and I never worked with video. And Paramount made a courageous decision to have their final master in video rather than film, to be able to do the volume of work within the time allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
by the way, this is you, real quick. This is you on set in Birthright Part 2, instructing Michael Dorn.
Well, artistic collaboration would be the correct term.
Right, of course. So I wanted to also point out this here, Dan. You emailed this a couple days ago, and so casually you said, "Oh, by the way, here's a painting I threw together. No big deal." And I was like, "Is this real? How did you do this?" And so you just kind of knocked this out recently, right? Look at this.
It started out as a detailed pencil sketch, and then I played with color.
Oh, is that it?
Wow.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, these are what I would call stream of consciousness paintings, where they had no specific idea I wanted to work, and would just make some random lines, and as they started to look like something, I drew that too.
Wow, it's gorgeous.
It looks like a scene from an animated movie.
And then you sent, just very quickly, a few others that I think our viewers would love to see. Unused concept for Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, so they wanted a habitat for an extinct species of sentient avians. So here I thought it would be really cool if when birds attained sentience, they would evolve nest building into architecture. So I wanted to make sure all the ergonomics were proper for birds.
Right.
That's crazy.
Krebs Psychotropic Vision. Concept painting for a movie I was working on in Africa. Look at this.
It was a remake of Clan of the Cave Bear. And this is the psychotropic vision of a Neanderthal shaman who sees the clan totem in campfire smoke.
These are just unbelievable. Boardwalk, oil on canvas. Oh, this was 1976. Wow.
Yeah, I did that when I was living on Cape Cod.
And I think
that's Cape Cod.
Wow. Stillness at last light. Beautiful reflection here.
That's done
in the autumn. In the autumn on Cape Cod, there's a moment when the sea breeze changes to a land breeze, and there's about 15 minutes of absolute stillness when that's happening. And that's what I tried to capture. And I did something with the sky. Instead of painting it with opaque paint that absorbs light, I painted the sky with transparent glazes. So light would go through the transparent paint, bounce off the white canvas, and it gave the illusion of being a little bit more luminous.
Mm-hmm. And this last one, Kathmandu, do you want to tell us about this one?
I did that waiting for my trekking permit in Nepal. That was the view out of my 50-cent a day lodge. And my mom had given me a little oil painting set that was just enough paint to do that while I was waiting for the permit.
Unreal.
Yeah, while I was waiting for my permit,
I know.
Masterpiece.
I know. Oh, I just got a little painting kit real quick. I knocked this out. This was just my view out the window. You know, whatever. Well,
That's
Dan,
beautiful.
We're always shocked and impressed by you, and we're always extremely appreciative of your time. It's had to be the thrill of a lifetime. Well, maybe not your lifetime, but most of our lifetimes to direct an episode of Star Trek for you. It's just another feather in your cap, but really impressive work. Really appreciate you, Dan. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Well, I hope I was not too incoherent. So
not at
we
all.
love you, Dan. You're a legend. I still tell the story about how you made the force field with that pom-pom. So
yes.
I will never forget the legend of Dan Curry. Thanks for giving us more to cherish about your accomplishments. But this was a fantastic opportunity to showcase your directing skills on top of all the other skills.
Yeah. And the good news is we got more Star Trek coming someday. So they have your number, hopefully, and you might get that second episode someday. That would be really fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. Everybody stick around. We got a lot more coverage of this glorious episode directed by Dan Curry. Oh, Dan, whose decision was it, real quick? I saw Renee Echevarria's name on one of the star charts where they're like, oh, it's over on these two planets over here, but in the corner, one of the star systems said Echevarria. Did you?
Well, there are a lot of those on all the call-outs. The art department designed those. A lot of Mike Okuda and Herman and others in the art department. And for example, behind the bridge, there's a big cross-section of the Enterprise. And if you were on the set, you would know that in the shuttle bay, there was a rubber ducky and a Porsche. And when they up-res to Blu-ray, you could read a lot of that stuff. So they took it out. They had to change something because the ones that were funny, they just the audience should. They were not intended for the audience.
All right, there's some good stories there. Anyway, thank you so much, Dan Curry. Everybody, stick around. We've got a lot more. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
All right, here are the trivioids of the week. Not a lot, in fact, because it was just kind of, second part of a two-parter, cut to the chase, not a lot of flim-flam at the beginning. Here they are. There is no room in Worf's heart for shame. A Jin-Tok spear is made for battle, not tilling soil. It is a strange thing when a jailer concerns himself with his prisoner's comfort. Kahless eventually found his father's sword. The Klingon hunt is a ritual that reminds them where they came from. All right, everybody, a quick note is that Dan Curry, when we were talking to him on the break, he was telling us, boy, Jonathan West, thank you very much, the director of photography, Jonathan West, that we mentioned for just a second in the first segment. He said he really was super gracious and empathetic to him and super nice, knowing that it was his first, director job, and he was just unbelievably helpful, patient, and great, as anybody that knows Jonathan West knows. Like, Sirach, you knew him for 7 years. He was a great guy.
Yeah, and he knows what he's doing. So when he's on your side helping you, you really have a tremendous advantage, especially if it's a first-time director. And Jonathan's there working with all the directors who come in and out. Mm-hmm. So he is that that steady pillar that really knows what the consistent through line of the show is going to be. But yeah, make sure that Dan wanted to get an extra shout out to Jonathan West and for his, just complimentary work on the show. But
and Dan is such an
amazing dude. Yeah,
it's like,
and it's crazy because you would think they'd give him a special effects episode. Yeah. I understand that it's a Klingon episode, and he does have the history there with the Klingon. If there was more weaponry involved, it would be even probably more, up his alley. But you would think that he'd have more visual effects and stuff to do.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe it was just like they figured, he can't do as much double duty, but VFX would be in post. But I don't know. I'm sure there was something that went into that decision, though. I don't think it was random. But Dan is so humble all the time. He's always like, "Oh, they just threw me a random episode. Oh, I just designed some guitars. Oh, I just did this." Anyway, very huge thank you to Dan Curry for always being so gracious with his time. And this was a fun episode. I remember it well. I don't know if you saw that Echeverria thing in the corner, but when they were showing like the star chart, I was like, "You guys are so sneaky. We caught you there." But they love doing stuff like that.
They wanted to be caught on that one.
Right. So I thought of you a few times on this episode. But before I get into that, I just want to ask you straight up, what did you think of this episode? You'd never seen it before. You might have been thrown for a loop that like part 1 was Data and Worf. Part 2 was just a Worf story. That's kind of strange. It's not always like that in a two-parter.
Very weird. And that's why this episode, it almost feels detached from the first part. The first part had Bashir.
Right. It was a totally different. Yeah, that's right? True. And Deep Space Nine.
And Deep Space Nine. And, it was about this medical device that Bashir had that he was trying to activate with Geordi and Data, and, which eventually caused Data to have that dream sequence. So I thought that device meant something, for one. I mean, why bring in this thing just to zap Data? Data could have been zapped on a power surge or some kind of, anything.
Fill in the blank, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have to be Bashir working on a thing that he found.
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine crossover, just to zap Data into a dream about, Dr. Sue. Like, it's just like, it's kind of a weird way to get to a dream about Dr. Soong and some hidden neural pathways that were meant to be activated at some point or a later date of showing a kind of robotic evolution of Data, right? But I felt like this episode had nothing to do with the first one. I was expecting a follow up on Bashir's device thing. I was expecting a follow up on what Data's dream would tie in back to this other side of the story. And ironically, you know, I guess in both cases, birthright means, means that you were born. Other than that, I don't see the, I don't see what the correlation is on all of that. But
That's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what the birthright is. What was Data's birthright? What is Worf's birthright?
Okay, I get it.
However,
I'm looking it up. It says a right or privilege in which a person is entitled by birth to such as citizenship acquired by being born in a country. Well, shoot, maybe I don't know. I think it was an historical concept of inheriting a family's property and authority through firstborn son. So I guess it's there's a loose thread for that title. There's something there, but yeah, less than I expected. Okay.
I mean, the best I can extrapolate is that it is the Klingons' birthright, and that is the actual young generation of Klingons that were in this Romulan prison camp or whatever. It is their birthright to be able to know who their identity is, to be able to have freedom to move and visit that place.
Mm-hmm. And some places it says used for organizations which provide free trips to young adults to visit and learn about their heritage or something like that. So maybe there's some kind of thing there. We know Israel does that where they provide, people that don't live there, they provide a free trip over to see their heritage or something like that. So maybe that is where this title came from. But then why would part one be called? Anyway, but you make good points where, because I hadn't really thought of that, but it's interesting that these two episodes do feel like they could just be their own standalone episodes. There could be an episode of just Data and Worf going through thoughts of, their fathers or something like that. And then there's this episode that's just Worf on this planet. Now, I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it because the first episode tells us how and why Worf goes over to this planet. But yeah, very different.
But that's, and that would be like, okay, so on DS9, that would just be that would be part of the serialized element of the show. You wouldn't call it a part one or part two, right? If in part one, this Uridian comes up to Worf and says, "Hey, I got some info. There's, your dad's really alive and this and that." Okay. And then you get, Birthright, which is the second part episode. The first part could have just been, Bashir and Data, working on this science thing, and remember Jason Oken said he couldn't figure out which was the A story and which was the B story
in the first one. Yeah,
in the first one, it was kind of hard to figure out what's the A story, what's the B. Is the A story the Data's POV and what's happening to him, or is it Worf's POV?
It's got to be Worf because that's the one that leads. I mean,
that gets carried on. Yeah,
I would love to know. Honestly, I would love to know what the writers' room meetings. What was the genesis of this two-parter? Like, if they said, "Okay, we need this big Worf two-parter," and then they were just kind of like, "Well, the first episode needs something more. Let's give it a B plot of like Data is also doing this, and that's our device that we use for Worf to kind of convince himself to go when he's giving the advice." Or if it was the other way around, where they started with the two stories, And then the second episode, they're like, actually, let's just drop the rest of the Data stuff. Let's just focus on, I don't know which direction it came from, but it'd be really fascinating to know how that story evolved,
Yeah, and I also thought it was funny because you brought up the Cromwell getting paid for that one scene, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, did they bring this big time actor back to literally say nothing for 5 seconds on camera?
Yeah, but it was definitely him. But I think Dan confirmed that there was more to it, but they just had to cut up. But it's fun because you see him kind of pictured. He's just doing this thing, and that was it. I was like, oh, poor James. that's all he got.
I actually forgot. I forgot about him. That's how much the second episode is different from the first episode. I forgot about him and his rendezvous to pick him up in 15 hours or whatever he told him he had to pick him up. Remember, I just thought, this guy's not coming back. He's not in the story. He dropped him off, and that's it. It's on you.
Yeah. Who I forgot about was Richard Hurd. He lost himself in that character so well that I didn't even realize it was him. A lot of times you can always be like, oh, I recognize that actor. Even through all the makeup, you go, I know who that is. But other times, like Richard Hurd, I forgot it was him because he became that old Klingon to where it wasn't even, I didn't even realize it until I was looking at the credits afterwards. I was like, oh, shoot, that's right. What was his name? Liqueur, I think. Yeah, Liqueur.
Yeah. I like me some liqueur.
Hey.
But yeah, he was fantastic in this episode. So was the
Romulan guy, T'Koth.
Yeah,
I thought he was great too.
Yeah, man, and I thought that the lady Bael was really, really terrific as well.
The lady who played the Klingon. Yeah, let me get some my other headphones.
Yeah, sure. Jennifer Gotti. There were just so many great actors in this throughout. Christine Rose playing Gerald, James Cromwell, as we mentioned, Sterling Macer Jr. playing Talk. That was his last name. I think his first name was Tick. And Alan Scarf playing T'Koth, Jennifer Gotti, Bael, and Richard Hurd as Liqueur, who Sirach loved, of course. All right, well, let's talk about, we're almost out of time here, so let's talk about the home run of today. Since we're already talking about people that surprised us and amazed us, let's talk about the home run of today's episode. Sirach, who gets the home run of today's episode?
Well, I'm going to tell you who gets the home run. And the home run of the episode, my initial instinct and thought was Worf's hair. Because Worf's hair, and all of the Klingons' hair was fantastic, but Worf's hair.
Bael's hair was, I actually noticed her hair was, I was like, whoa, I've never said that, but I was like, oh my God, her hair is gorgeous. I was like, who said that? I literally said that out loud. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, the hair was it was so much hair on the set, so much flowing, lovely hair that I actually came up with spoof shampoos, the Star Trek shampoos, and one is Zial Sassoon. I've also got Kayla's Spice. That's just to Paul Mitchell.
Ooh, very good.
And then we also have Head and Stovacurs.
Head and Stovacurs. That's awesome. Some people once made the L'Oreal because you're Worf it.
That's another one.
Yeah, I can't claim that one. That's been was created a long time ago. So besides the hair.
But besides the hair, I'm going to give it to my buddy Dan Curry. First time directing, getting a chance to, showcase his skills. We love him so much. He's done so much contribution to the whole world of Star Trek, and he just added another notch on his belt with this one. And it's not easy to work with a lot of guest actors. You're not working with the steady crew that already knows what to do, and they pretty much can direct themselves. This requires some level of guidance on his part. And so for first time directing, I think Dan Curry did a pretty great job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dan Curry getting the home run of the episode, because whenever there's somebody that's only directed one episode basically ever, you feel like you might notice it. Maybe there's a drop off, maybe there's a different tone, maybe there's this or that. But he nailed it. Professional directing debut. It's definitely something he can show off for the rest of his life and say, I directed a Star Trek episode. Check it out. It's beautiful, well shot, well paced. Everything was great. No notes. Cool. Secondarily, dude, as you mentioned, Alan Scarf, who played Tokoth, the Romulan guy, from the very beginning, I was like, whoa, this dude is good, because he wasn't trying to act like an alien or overdo anything. He was just saying things in an interesting way. And each line was delivered differently than I would have expected in a good way. And if somebody surprises you with how they deliver something, but it's in a good way, then you're like, wow, that's really good. He made a lot of choices. I think he took a lot of chances, or maybe that's just how he is as an actor. Maybe he just always delivers things in these interesting and different ways, but really impressed by him. All right, here's some other people that are extremely impressive, and their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manasvi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, Greg K. Wickstrom out in Hawaii, Cassandra G., Chuck A., Chris Garris, and of course, a man who may or may not have loved this episode. We'll find out soon. Jason M. Oken. All right, everybody, stick around. We've got the free-for-all coming up next. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Oh, and everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. Visit us at patreon.com/the7th-rule to support the show and be a part of the team. We'll be right back. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Sirach Lofton. This is the free-for-all with Melissa Longo and her 7th Rule shirt. Also, Jason M. Oken has thoughts.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Allison Leach Hyde is here. Oh, she's wearing a Melissa shirt. Chuck A has his prune juice and chill shirt. That is perfect for today's episode.
Yes.
Anil O. Palat is floating outside in space. Oh, and he's got a Melissa shirt too. TJ Jackson Bay is about a centimeter tall behind the grass. Carrie Schwent, regular size in front of foliage. Mark Zutkoff has a bunch of pictures around him. And Chris McGee has a beautiful Be Kind shirt, always great. The Matt Boardman, everybody's got cool shirts today. The Matt Boardman's got his USS Titan shirt. And we are ready to rumble. All right, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Well, I think this might be around like a 6.7.
6.7. Sirach is livid today. Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know what the score was on IMDb? And by was, I mean is 7.4.
7.5. 7.1.
All right. Is that everybody? That sound you just didn't hear tells you that somebody got it right on the deflector dish. Chris McGee, it is in fact a 7.5.
Wow.
Wait, Melissa's frowning. Did I get that wrong?
7.3.
Oh,
It's
so last week's was 7.5. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Nobody got it right,
You didn't
everybody. Not
refresh
even
it.
me.
Yeah.
7.3. Is that, did I?
As of an hour ago.
Well, when I looked,
Oh, that's amazing.
That was
Who
very
that?
good. Who did that?
That was good. That was good.
Who did that? That was great. Was that Chris McGee?
I will not confirm nor deny.
Bloop,
Okay. 7.3. Any
Anil
non-appearance
got
mentions?
close, right? Didn't you say 7.2?
7.4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we had a
7.4.
7.5 and a 7.1 and Sirach throwing shade. Did we have
Oh,
any,
just you wait.
Uh-oh.
any non-appearance mentions today? I didn't catch any.
Deep
Kalis.
Space Nine.
Payless.
Kalis.
Okay. Yes, of course. Very good. Very good. Okay. What about some kinds of or some sorts of?
No, those we didn't have.
That's not in the
Kalis.
Klingon vocabulary.
Yeah, they mentioned Kalis a ton. All right. Melissa, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of this particular episode, which is Birthright Part 2?
Birthright Part 2. I thought it was okay. I don't think it was terrible, but it's not a favorite. It was okay. I do like how proud Worf is of his heritage. I do like that. However, however, sorry. You know when you read something and it gets you distracted and then you can't remember what you're about to say. Anyway, see, it went out the window.
That's okay. Take two.
Take two. However, yes, he's a bit of a racist. That was where I was going. Worf is a racist against Romulans. And I don't really like that part about Worf. As much as I love Worf and the complexities that his character has, I don't like how racist he is. And this episode kind of was parallel to, I feel like, colonialism and how, the Romulans kind of imposed their way of life on the Klingons. However, the Klingons kind of asked, it was kind of a self-imposed colonialism. I don't know. There's this gray area where they were put in a weird position. So the Klingons asked them to stay, the Romulans to stay with each other, to stay. Let's stay together. And there is this peace that was born. Wonderful. And then Worf comes in and throws a wrench in that peace, and it was like, let's do it my way. And so that was a little bit frustrating. And I feel like this is a good episode that holds a mirror up to how people are in general, because we try and impose ourselves and impose our beliefs on other people and telling them how we think that they should live their lives, and that they should live their lives the same way that I live my life, which is bonkers. Nobody should be telling anybody how to live their life. If they're happy and they're not hurting anyone, what's it to you? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, mixed bag here. And I'm gonna stop there because my train of thought was blasted from the beginning.
Derailed. Thank you very much, Melissa F. Longo. All right, Jason M. Oken, you teased some barbs. Let's hear them.
Well, I find this episode a little frustrating because I think it could have been so much more than it turned out to be. There was a lot more potential here. in terms of the story, in terms of sort of the depth of character that didn't really shine through. I think, certainly for the character of Worf, we see something that's actually consistent for him throughout. I know Melissa mentioned sort of this racist undertones, and that there's nothing new for Worf there. He's displayed sort of this kind of attitude toward the Romulans before, whether you like it or not. That's just part of his personality. I think at some level, since this is sort of part 2 of a 2-parter, and there's no B story here, it's just one story going on here. Although there are various parts to it, there are various relationships. I guess there's a relationship between Worf and Talk. There's a relationship with Bael. There's various kinds of relationships going on. There are different kind of stories, but I'm not sure they all blossom in the way they should have blossomed. And some of it, frankly, was lost because I think the episode may have run about 5 to 7 minutes long, just approximately, it looks like. And some of the things that should have made it there and would have made the episode better did not end up in the final version. And I'll talk about some of that later and why I think that happened. But again, for something like a 2-parter in this part of the season, you want the scope to be larger. But obviously, filming everything on the soundstage, things did look kind of small and confined and kind of resolved too quickly, and some of the motivations didn't come through very well. And it bothered me for a long time until I looked at the script, and there's a lot more there than meets the eye. So I'll reserve a lot of that for later. But again, I find this a little bit frustrating just because of the potential the episode had.
Mm-hmm. Good guess. Mr. Dan Curry told us it was actually 11 minutes over on this one, but you could definitely sniff it out. Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you very much. Jason M. Oken, Allison Leach Hyde, IDIC. What'd you think of this one?
It too is not one of my favorites, but what I do like about this episode, I know, it's amazing, is that it is fun to do it like a character study of, we have, one of our main characters going off to do something that he deems very heroic, and it kind of blows up in his face. And I know we have all been there where we have had our best intentions kind of exploded in our face. And so it's interesting to watch Worf go through that and how he tries to kind of like redeem his situation. So that's, it's interesting to watch. Was it the best episode? No. I also like the idea of, we are, most of us here in America, and our parents or grandparents or further down the line immigrated here either voluntarily or not. And so a lot of us have lost our original culture in a way, and seeing how we were all Americanized, and then younger generations coming back and going, hey, what was it like where we were from? How was that? And giving our younger generations the right to know where they came from. That's nice to see that this episode did explore. So I liked that. And I really liked the costumes on the Klingons. I will completely derail from plot because I liked that they were using like Romulan fabrics to make Klingon clothing. And I thought that was really well done and very well thought out on the costume departments. So I like that. So I think I'm going to stop there, but that's what I liked about the episode.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde. Time for a TNG fanatic to jump in on this conversation. Chuck A., what does your fanaticism tell you about this one?
Well, I do think part 1 was much better than part 2. There were some interesting aspects of part 2 with Worf trying to be the teacher to the younger Klingons or half Klingons. I did pick up a couple things on IMDb and other sources that Richard Hurd's character, the older Klingon, went blank on his name, but he was in the original script was going to actually play Worf's father, Moog, and they rewrote the script, to make him that he knew Worf and he knew Moog. James Cromwell's character Shrek originally had more to do in this episode, but he broke his leg in between the filming of part 1 and part 2. So they I don't know if they filmed anything. I don't think so.
Did somebody say that for good luck?
I don't know. Maybe. That's good if you're on stage, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, anyway, Melissa mentioned the racism with Romulans. He's always had that. Going all the way back to the Neutral Zone episode in season 1, and they were at the end. They're going to kill him because of what he was trying to teach all the younger Klingons there. And of course, everybody came in to defend him, and then he survived. But I really thought the episode could have been a lot better, but it might have something to do with the trim scenes. And like Jason said, there was no B plot. It was all one plot. But I mean, I didn't dislike the episode, but part 1 was much better.
Thank you very much, Chuck A. wearing his Worf shirt, a Warriors shirt. Anil O. Palat, what's up? Welcome back. Two-parter. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think I didn't like it. And the reason was because when I was watching it, I was like, I'm starting to like nitpick a lot of stuff. And I was like, oh man, I think, yeah. And I think it starts out with, we have all this build up to Moog. And then Worf shows up and they're like, oh, your dad's not here. And I'm like, oh. You're just kind of like, okay, so let's go to point 2. So it would have been nice if he went to his father's grave, or he had a conversation with somebody about his dad, just to kind of close that loop a little bit. Would have been nice. And also, yeah, Worf being racist is in line with the character, but it would have been nice to see him see something there that would maybe change his perspective a little bit and go, okay, maybe I'm wrong about Romulans, or, maybe this culture that's starting here is something not Klingon, not Romulan, it's just something new. And I need to go back and kind of revisit, my beliefs. So it would have been nice to kind of have a little lesson or a change in Worf there. But then there are 2 other small things that I noticed. One, Picard's reaction at the end when Worf gets off the transporter. And I don't know if it's, the way Patrick Stewart played that, to me it was, Worf, I know you're lying to me. I know whatever it is, I don't want to know, but definitely something happened, right? Like he kind of gave him that look. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then at like minute 12 or something, I did notice there was like an ensign who I was like, is that an android? Like, I don't know if they overdid her makeup or something, but she was like Data's color. I don't know if anybody noticed that. I was just like, huh. So I kept going back. So yeah. But yeah, it would have been nice to have some of those things that they kind of teed up to sort of had some kind of conclusion.
That was great stuff. Thank you very much, Anil O. Palat. I actually read that ensign that was Data's color is because she had the shrimp for lunch in it. TJ, Jackson Bay out in Missouri. What say you?
Was it grilled or was it fried?
I think it was raw. Wriggling.
That'll do it. Yeah. All right. Yeah, this episode has Romulans in it, but it's probably not my favorite Romulan episode because of some reasons that people have already mentioned, and we don't really dig into learning anything new about the Romulans, or Worf doesn't go have this journey of having a better understanding of these people, and he is racist, but I also kind of see a little bit of why, and I think that is kind of brought out in this episode, and maybe the one before it too, because he's come here and he's looking for his father, and he's expecting to find dishonor, and the Romulans are to blame for a lot of the things that have happened in his life. The fact that he wasn't raised by Klingons, that he had to be raised by humans, and all of that is because of that attack from the Romulans. So it's kind of understandable why he does not like them. But I do think that he kind of grappled with that a little bit in this episode because of his love for Bael and the way that he felt about her. and then to find out, hey, you have some Romulan blood, and so he kind of runs away from it at first, but then he does come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I overreacted, when I saw your ears, and I kind of don't know how to feel about this. So he is wrestling with it a little bit. I would have liked to have seen that go a little bit further, and maybe him get to know Tokath, or at least try to understand why the situation developed the way it did instead of just judging it. And that goes into the thing that jumped out to me the most in this episode is uh, also something. Melissa took a lot of what I was thinking. I was thinking about you, Melissa, when I was watching this episode, and I was like, I have to channel my inner Melissa, but Melissa did the Melissa. So, but I was looking at this kind of balance between, how much do you assimilate, and how true do you stay to yourself. And then when someone comes along and kind of disturbs that balance, what is that like? What do you do? They remember what it was like to be Klingons, and they gave that up so long ago, and they've been okay until now. And then this guy comes and says, hey, you guys are supposed to be Klingons. What are you doing? Don't you remember? We hunt, we fight, and we die. But also, in being true to yourself, the thing that I found to be in life is in every relationship and in every situation, we all have to sometimes give up a little bit of who we are in order to get along with the world, with other individuals, with other groups, whether it's, work or society. And, the question does become, how far is too far? And when someone calls you out, what do you do? And so I appreciate that this episode brings all of that out into the open for us to think about. And I don't necessarily have to agree with the decisions that the characters made, but it gives me something to think about and talk about and to look at in myself. Someone said it, it was Melissa. Yeah, we all find ourselves judging people and trying to tell them that they should be like us or do things the way that that I think they should do them, which isn't right, isn't fair. Because if someone came to me and told me I should be someone else, then and that is that's happened. It's happened plenty of times. It's how true do I be to myself? I can listen to it. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna just change because someone said I should be a different person. But again, I'm grateful this episode brings us out. Somebody threw out a what if scenario, and this is the what if scenario I would like to have seen. I'm not even going to save it for things left unsaid. I'm going to say it now. What if all of this stuff happened, and it's great. I love that Worf met someone who knew his father at least, and got to hear kind of a story or something, about his father. But I think it would have been far more compelling if, even instead of that, or in addition to that, what if there was another child there that was at Kittimer that Worf knew, that grew up and gave up being Klingon? And so Worf would be faced with, this could have been me, but instead I got picked up by the Federation and he got picked up by the Romulans. I shudder to imagine what that would have been like for Worf to have to confront that and realize that it could have been him. I would have found that a lot more compelling.
Wow. All right. I feel like there's more to chew on and things left unsaid with that one. Thank you very much, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. All right. Carrie Schwent, Star Trek shirt, almost Star Wars. What'd you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely not quite a favorite. I do love Worf to death. I kind of agree with what Jason was saying about it, and I think the story would have been better if they had done both parts as just a Klingon story and saved Data's for his own separate episode, you could have gone even more into Data's dreams with that, and had to throw that in there since I wasn't available for part one, because I do love Data's story. And if you had done Birthright parts 1 and 2 with just Worf and all of that, you could have gone into more depths on sort of things. You could have kept all the stuff that had to be cut. You could have even included Worf maybe mentioning that, oh yeah, I'm from Starfleet, and if they're expecting me in a couple of days, and they're gonna come looking for me if you make me stay here. And oh yeah, maybe just a casual mention of, yeah, I've got a son on that ship too who's waiting for me to come home. It could have been. I enjoyed it, but it could have been a lot better. And I can't not mention that we don't actually see him manipulating them. We do come across one of Worf's major mortal enemies, the manual door handle. They were everywhere in this episode, although you never actually see him actually touching one. He had to have at least conquered it briefly, because there's a couple of times where he's outside of his room and we don't see him actually leaving. So maybe he eventually, maybe my headcanon says he eventually figured it out. Yeah, TJ mentioned the Worf and Biel. I liked her. Her markings were definitely different, and I liked that they were different. He does apologize. His hatred of Romulans well documented, and he does suck it up and apologize, even if that apology, he just sort of digs himself in a little deeper as he's trying to apologize. But again, if this had been like the full two-parter, they could have gone more into their relationship too, perhaps. And yeah, I agree with Anil that I think it says a lot about Picard and Worf's relationship that at the end he's got enough respect for Worf that all he has to say is, I understand. You can definitely tell in his face that he knows why Worf said what he said, and he's content to leave it at that. Something that Eric pointed out when one of the few scenes in the episode on the bridge, and they're looking at the route that Trek's ship had taken. One of the 3 planets is Echeverria, named after the writer of the episode, and that just he noticed that, and then we rewound and paused it, and just seeing that made me smile. I love when they include little fun tidbits like that. All of the guest stars were great. I had Chris McGee mention one from the other day, but we've got the actress that played Gael or Biel, Jennifer Gotti. She's in a season 2 episode of Voyager. She's fantastic in that. And the Romulan commander guy, he has been on TNG previously. He was in Data's Day, so I've already spotlighted him. But I love that man. He's got such a cool voice. But Richard Hurd, the character's name is LaCour. Mark, you said you couldn't remember what his name was, but it was LaCour.
Sirach said he loved LaCour.
Oh yeah,
he really did say that.
So say we are. He's in a fantastic episode of Buffy that I enjoy. He's on 12 episodes of Sequest as an admiral. He's got 4 episodes of Star Trek Voyager as Paris's dad, the Admiral Paris. But of course, I wouldn't be me if I didn't giggle in delight when I saw that he was in a fantastic 2-parter of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, playing a doctor in Boston when she goes to visit her mother, this doctor misdiagnosed her mother, and doesn't like it very much when Dr. Mike points out that he was wrong about the diagnosis. I enjoy him in that 2-part episode, but I very much enjoyed the actor that played Talk. I thought he was great. His his forehead ridges, I think, were probably my favorite in the episode. They were just very symmetrical. I love fun patterns like that. But he actually inspired my limerick for the episode, so I'll finish with that. I'm feeling things awakening in me. Now that Worf has opened my eyes, I see we're a proud warrior race. There's a harsh truth I now face. The time has come for the young ones to leave.
Thank you very much. Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. All right, up next, Mr. Mark Zutkov. We're all waiting with bated breath for the home pun of the day. What'd you think?
I didn't care for this episode when it originally aired, and I'm afraid my opinion of it has not improved. No disrespect to first and only time director Dan Curry, but the episode is very slow-paced. There's a lot of tell, don't show. It's almost entirely set on a planet populated mostly with characters I have never bonded with, although I give kudos to Michael Dorn for a fairly nuanced performance as Worf. It's also a shame that there was no follow-up here to the Data story from the first part of the two-parter. I had two big problems with the story. First, I didn't buy the relationship between Worf and Bael. She seemed too young and inexperienced for Worf to fall in love with her, though I can understand how she might have a crush on him. When they kiss midway through the episode, I felt it wasn't earned. Second, in this episode, Worf is essentially the serpent in a manufactured Eden. He's also a less sympathetic Victor Laszlo from Casablanca, replacing the singing of La Marseillaise with a Klingon battle song that had been used as a lullaby. Once again, his prejudice against Romulans gets in the way of his character growth, though there are a few hints that he might have been able to get past his biases if the right things had been said. In this two-parter, he vacillates between a Klingon ideal of honor and acknowledging that there could be mitigating circumstances. At the beginning of the episode, he says there is no room in his heart for shame, yet by the end, he's all in on Klingon ideals. Had the Romulans simply accepted Worf's word that he would tell no one about the colony and let him leave at the beginning, there would have been no show. But at the end, not only does Worf leave, but some unknown number of the young inhabitants go with him. And I was a bit surprised that Worf does lie to Captain Picard, although, as Anil and Carrie said, I think Picard realizes it. Did Bael leave the colony? The fact that she went back to stand with her parents seems to indicate she did not. And my home pun of the episode, Worf had to cling on to his culture's ideals, so he had to bail on the colony.
Thank you very much, Mark Zutkov. All right, Chris McGee, did you love this episode? Are you the one?
I really like this episode. Probably more so now that I'm older and can better appreciate a well-written story. So I give kudos once again to Renee Echeverria, as this is a pretty good story. I mean, it does have its faults, which others have already discussed, so I don't need to repeat them. As for what I liked about it, well, like all well-written stories, the audience can see and even sympathize with both opposing points of view, in this case, Worf's and Tokoth's. Obviously, Worf wants to escape and take as many Klingons with him as he can, but Tokoth gave up his career and home and started a whole new life and family here, so he will do anything to protect it, including killing Worf. So you can sympathize with both points of view. My biggest complaint, if you can call it that, is that this two-parter is really just two completely different stories kind of duct taped together with almost no connection between them. It's as though they saw that the Data story was a little less than an hour and Worf's was a little more, so they just combined the two to fill 2 hours or something. After all, I can see why the title Birthright was chosen for Worf's story, but I'd have to really stretch to find a way for it to apply to Data's story in the previous episode. And of course, as others have mentioned, I would be incredibly remiss if I didn't call out the guest stars. We briefly saw Richard Hurd, who plays LaCour at the end of the previous episode. I've been a fan of the actor since I saw him portray Captain Galaxy on Quantum Leap. He's a fantastic character actor. And speaking of fantastic actors, it's a delight to see Alan Scarf again, along with his unique voice. playing another Romulan. As Care mentioned, the first was in Data's day. And surprise, surprise, he was also in Quantum Leap. I guess both productions, Star Trek and Quantum Leap, and, well, for that matter, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, had connections with the same acting agency or something. I don't know. Jennifer Gotti, who's played by Aiel, also does a pretty incredible job acting, especially when she goes to Worf on the eve of his execution and begs him to reconsider. I always tear up a little at her words in that scene. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone make the word go sound so commanding and threatening as Giral did, played by Christine Rose. And yet she also has the wisest words at the end of the episode. As for the memorable quote, kind of a poetic one from Worf, and this is the moment where life and death meet.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Dark Lord Chris McGee with the Ukrainian flag, as always. The Matt Boardman. What's up, the Matt? Isn't it cool that we had Dan Curry on? What'd you think of this one?
I know. Freaking Dan Curry, man. That guy he's smart. He's very smart and very talented. After listening to everybody, I have to say that this episode, if I look at it objectively, it was a success in the sense that everybody had thoughts about it, right? And I got thinking about it because when I've watched this episode before, I'm always like, yeah, Worf, because he's our hero, right? We want to root for our heroes. But then when I was watching it this time, I was like, what a jerk face weasel. Because he comes in there and they have this like thing that's like, they're copacetic, right? They've found a way for two races to live together in harmony. And Worf's like, F that noise, man. I'm coming in here with my freaking Klingon bat lift. I'm going to cut some suckers up. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like I just thought I was like, man, I was kind of put off by that. But I was like, you know what? That's the point. That is absolutely the point, because Star Trek is there to hold a mirror to the human race, and that's what this episode does. Now, yes, there are definitely some things that could have been done differently, and there are some things that could have been done better. But you know what? Worf is a racist at this point in his character development. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, in The Enemy, he's like, sucker, you're gonna die because I ain't giving you none of my blood. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, he's laid it out there for us. And I think that's the thing about that. I love that about that is that we want Worf to be, in our mind's eye, we have a visage of Worf, right? Of who he is. And then when stuff like that happens, it's a reminder to us that Worf is not human. He may have been raised by humans, but he embraces his Klingon culture, and that's so different from ours and it's great that it is, because it helps us as the audience to realize where we stand with those issues. And so I'm grateful for those opportunities. For as much as they are uncomfortable and as much as I don't like them, I'm grateful for those things. And so I love when stories have those bits that remind me of, like, what my humanity is and where my values stand. And I also too love it because we see Worf at this point in time, right? And we're going back and we're watching this, after having seen where Worf ends up in Picard season 3, and the contrast. And I love that Worf gets to have that story arc, because I think that's kind of a resemblance of what a lot of us go through in our lives. I remember in my 20s, I was like, there was a lot of stuff I was very like fiery about. And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, why did I ever let that bother me? Right. So I love that about this episode. I do think there are some things that would have been really cool. And the fact that we could have had Moog like actually there, that to me, that would have been powerful. But the key would have been for Moog to not survive. You know what I mean? Like that, I think that would have been like the home run right there, is to have that moment with Worf and his father, but to then take it away, and then maybe I'll open the door for opportunities of how does Worf deal with that, right? Anyway, so I don't know. It's a good episode, but it's not a great episode. But it could have been if there had been a few changes.
Yes. Thank you very much. The Matt Boardman property of the USS Titan. Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, there was just all around. I'm just not really a big fan of this episode. I felt like it just missed on a few things here and there. Most of all, I didn't feel an element of danger at all. I think they usually play into danger on shows where there's like this imminent destruction or something that's going to happen. And I just never felt that on this show. Even Worf's captivity didn't feel a sense of urgency when they were looking for him. They were like, "Yeah, Worf disappeared a little bit ago. Where is he? Yeah, let's go check it out." There was no imminent sense of danger, and so I think that really took away a lot from me. They had an opportunity to talk about biracial children that I thought they missed out on. Having this kid that's of two races that dislike each other, and now being like one of the few people born in love with that. I think that was a great chance to talk about it. If anything, Worf should have dropped Alexander off over there because he's not doing any dad work. Hey, you guys think you could help me raise this kid? I'll drop him over here.
I'll send him a birthday card later.
Yeah, I'll come back and visit, I swear. Yeah, when Worf says there's no room in his heart for shame, I felt like he is kind of a shameless kind of guy. When you really look at his character, he's shameless. And, that's just what he is. And I felt like he was admitting it. The girl, Bael, does she go to the pond and let everybody watch her bathe? Because that seemed to be like not a big deal for her. She was like, I guess I won't see you at the pond again. Like, how many people are at this pond and what's going on here? Like, a little background story on that. Worf, don't trust her. And then this Uridian, he shows up to get paid? Like you're not getting paid, bro. You're an idiot is actually what you really are. You're in the wrong place. And then lastly, I saw Worf dressed up with the all black on, and I thought, you know what? Worf is my ninja.
I don't understand.
That's all I got. That's it.
I got that, Sirach. No one else may know.
Yeah, only TJ got that one.
I got it.
All right. That's it for us, everybody. If you got it, I guess comment in the comments. Right. Let us know what. Killing Allison. Thank you very much to the Matt Boardman, Chris McKee, Mark Zetkoff, Carrie Schwent, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Anil O. Palat, Chuck A., Allison Leach Hyde, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo for myself, Sirach, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. He got that joke. We'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the seventh rule.